Hello, welcome back to the David Watson podcast. Today I spoke with Madelyn and also had a wonderful opportunity to meet her dog Shazam. And we did talk about dogs and her books. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hello, welcome to the David Watson podcast. And thank you very much for introducing the dog. What a beauty she is.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
How long have you had her?
She's going to be 9 years old this summer, and we got her since she was 8 weeks old. But her father is also the father of my previous dog. Oh. So we loved him, and he was an amazing dog. So we wanted a relationship, a connection.
Yeah. So do you have a history of Australian Blues?
Yes, this is my third, and I just adore the breed. They're so brilliant. I mean, they're amazing. They're easy to train. So Shazam won 3 times, first in show on dog tricks, and my previous dog, whose name was Doozy, won. I think he came in number 1 twice or something like that.
We were talking today in the house because we had a collie, a brown border collie. Yeah. But we were just talking about collies in general, just what amazing family dogs they are. They are such great company. They're such great company.
I love having a smart dog. I love it because you really... She thinks. She really can think, which is so interesting.
It is. I currently have an elderly Staffordshire Bull Terrier called Molly. She's not the brightest button. She eats a lot and sleeps a lot. She's compared to previous, like Toby, who was our collie, who, like you say, their brain is just 2 steps ahead. They're always thinking.
Oh yes.
Molly is much more of a simple creature whose life focuses around what she's eating or what you're eating, and if nobody's eating, I should probably go to sleep.
Isn't it so funny that every dog, every canine is like a deprived of food? No matter how much food you get, they're always snacking on anything they see on the sidewalk. They're like desperate for the next morsel.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a couple of dogs over the years, like Toby the collie. He would pick at food all day, but wasn't that fussed. But Molly, we did an experiment with her one Christmas day. We just let her have plenty of leftovers and stuff like that, and we just stopped feeding her because she looked like one of those lions on the savannah that had just eaten an entire antelope, and her stomach was starting to swell. And I swear she still wanted her dinner. She would, every time you got up to eat, she was looking at you like she'd never eaten for a year, and you're like, you are
That's
actually
what they do.
yeah you're like two mouthfuls away from blowing up your stomach and going to the vets. But no, I'm starving. I haven't eaten for a year. So. But I've had. My sister has a Mastiff cross boxer, and she can be quite fussy with food.
Whoa.
She can massive dog, and we look after her sometimes. And you throw food to her, and she'll look at it, and my dog will come along and sweep it up. It's like, oh no, you snooze, you lose. I don't care how big you are. It all belongs to me.
Shazam eats once a day in the early morning. And so I think she gets used to the fact that that's it. Okay, she's accepted that. Except if we're eating, she will hang out under my husband because he's the sloppy eater. But other than that...
Molly just... She doesn't beg like dogs I've had that beg. She sits near you, but if you look at her, she looks away.
Yeah,
like
she's not noticing.
Like I don't see what's going on here. But if you don't give her, even as long as it's the tiniest tidbit, if you don't give her something, she will literally walk away and will not come near you for 3 or 4 hours. And
she's punishing you.
Yeah, she does. Honestly, she's the first dog I've had who has a really noticeable sulk. Like, and,
You know what? Each one
yeah.
is so individual. It's really amazing.
And when you're having your dinner and you give her a bit of food, she sits there and you actually have to show her your hands to show you've got nothing
Yeah,
in your hands. Otherwise, she just
exactly.
sits
I
there
do
staring.
that.
Yeah. You do the same. It's like, no, look. Honestly, I'm innocent. There's nothing left.
I do that exact thing. So she
How
realizes that there's no treats coming.
yeah. How did this happen to us? We have to persuade dogs. The food's gone. You've had everything. And then they kind of give you a look of satisfaction. Like, as long as I know you're not hiding anything, we can keep this sort of barrier. We can keep this friendship, this bond of trust, because you're not lying to me.
Exactly. Well, also, Shazam is crazy about her toys, lammies. Do you know the lammies?
No.
She adores her lammies. I mean, she adores them equal to a treat. If you ask her, where's a lammy, she'll go and get it for you
Oh
and
wow,
play with you.
that's brilliant. We're so lucky.
Apparently, it's America's favorite dog animal,
Oh,
dog toy. Yes, apparently. I read that somewhere.
yeah. We're just lucky because we got dogs are just amazing. They're so that they give you so much. They give you so much. But right, books, writing books and children's books, and so before we get into your book and what you wrote, you're from New York. Where are you born and bred? New York.
Correct.
And your parents were they, like, what was your family history?
No, they lived in New York. They were born in New York.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
The reason I love that history because it's so tangible. So you could be like 2 or 3 generations of living like where I live in Amesbury, right? Well, that doesn't matter. There's been a settlement here for 10,000 years.
where do you live?
Do you know Stonehenge?
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. But the problem with that is people have been living here for 10,000 years, whereas
Yes.
your family can go back to when New York kind of its history is young. So you're
Well,
within a
they were immigrants early 19th century or early 1900s.
yeah.
They all came over from Europe,
But and that's that
and
thing.
they were.
It's that tangible history. Do you know what I mean? As New York grew and New York developed and its cultures developed and it become a larger and larger sort of project, your family has an integral piece of that history.
Oh, absolutely. And my grandfather was a plumber during the Depression, and he had 2 daughters that went to college, but the son was going to be a plumber, so the college wasn't necessary for him.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting. So
Ah, that's nice. I like the fact because you're born and bred. Because you must have seen some changes in New York.
oh God, we've seen so many changes recently, like the internet. The internet is a mind-blowing change. Social media, like what is that? Yeah. Now, we've also seen the culture has changed. It's been a delivery craze. Like everybody wants their deliveries and they want it right away. So there are bikers that are going full steam ahead. When you cross the street, you have to be careful because some of them are electric. You don't even hear them coming. But it's become a very much a delivery society. Like every day looks like Christmas with boxes,
It's a
which is
shame.
unique.
It's a shame, really, because when you say it like that, it reminds me that once upon a time, people used to talk about New York being like a series of communities, where where every sort of set of streets, there was always something for everybody.
I think that it still is community. The Upper West Side is very rich community, but what I worry about is retail stores.
Yeah,
So it's so much easier to go on internet and get everything delivered. I worry and I try to go to the retail stores whenever I can because I want them to survive.
yeah.
And even if it's a little bit more expensive, I'm willing to pay the more expensive just because I think it's important for them to be healthy.
No, no, I agree.
I want everyone to be successful.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's really, really important. So, what was growing up for you then in New York? Whereabouts was that?
I grew up in Queens, New York, and my father would sing to the birds after work. He would love to sing to the birds. And we saved a bird that flew into his glass in his office factory, and we saved it in a shoebox. And it was my job to practice his wings. And soon enough, the wings got strong. He could fly away, but it was so sweet because he flew away, landed someplace, and then came back and landed on my shoulder. Just, I don't know, to say goodbye.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
nice. It's nice. No, that's nice. And that was Queens, did you say?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So, how did you get from Queens to writing a book?
So I had a landscaping company for Manhattan. I felt like we put beauty and nature to an otherwise concrete city. Mm-hmm. I feel like we benefited people's lives when they came to work. They saw plants and foliage, and it was in their offices, it was in their plazas, it was in their restaurants, or museums and hotels, or whatever it was. But we had 700 clients that we serviced each week. Now, mind you, I started the company by myself with no money, and it was a service company that grew over 28 years. And it was a fabulous experience because what I didn't know, I had to learn. And when I wanted to grow, I had to figure out what's keeping me from growing and what do I need to know. And it was just a wonderful experience. At a certain point, I sold and thought, let's change the page. Let's see about doing something different. And I started to paint. And I did watercolor painting. And one day I thought, I'm painting vases and still lifes, boring. It's not creative. And so I wanted to create characters. So I started oil painting, and I started to paint toucans because they're so fabulous and beautiful. And I painted them with a composition in mind. And then I realized that it begged a story. I mean, how can I have toucans on a string holding a ring? What's that about? And it was during the pandemic that I started to write the first book. However, I told stories to my daughter when she was young. I told 3 stories at bedtime. And what I did is those stories incorporated things that were happening in her life so that she could have better tools to deal with either relationships or happenings or so we incorporated, it was a cast of characters that we used every single night, but I incorporated all the things that were happening in her life that could help her in those stories. And that's what I think the books are about. The books incorporate wonderful messages for all children. For example, the last book is Poppy's Sweet Sibling Story. And it's about most people gravitate towards what they think they're good at and shy away from what they are frightened they're not. But the book is about having courage. The book is about trying. And you don't know what you're good at unless you try things. And chances are you get better in time, you learn. You don't know what your passion is going to be until you experience it. And that's what the book is about. The book is about a shy toucan that shies away and then realizes that it's one of the greatest gifts that she has to share. And it's the community that helps her. She doesn't do it alone. She does it with her friends that she trusts and relies on. She's scared that they're going to laugh at her and one toucan swishes the fear with a swing of her wing and says, no, I'll do it with you. No worries. And it became a group, a singing group in the Mungo Bungo jungle, which is where the books are all set. It's a tropical jungle. And it becomes the most famous band. It's called the Toucans. And the hit song is We Can Do. So it's about that. I think that it's true for adults and children. I meet lots of people that said, "Oh no, I can't draw. I can't paint." Have you ever tried? No, I don't. I think I'm not going to be good at it. But it's so silly to me that everyone should try everything.
Yeah, it's true. There's this idea that people think that because they're not good at something, they can't do it. Whereas it's just, no, nobody's good at anything until they start trying to do it.
Exactly. And practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Here's the cover of the book. Here. Can you see that?
I can. Very nice, yes. With a beautiful bow on her head.
Exactly.
And do you do all the illustrations yourself?
I did the first book, I did the illustrations, and then I hired my painting teacher to do the subsequent illustrations because I think he was going to be better than me, which I know it's true. So he's done all the illustrations for 6 of the 7 books. And the illustrations are adorable.
Yeah, I've seen some of the illustrations on your website, and they're really good.
They're fun and funny. I mean, he has, an elephant holding a microphone. He has a snake dancing. He has a turtle dancing. I mean, it's just, they're charming.
I like it. One of the things that impresses me, because there's a style of art where people draw animals as characters for books, but there's sometimes they can become too caricature, whereas you can see that he's drawn like he's one of the paintings is of an elephant, if I remember correctly, but it looks so lifelike while still looking like a character.
Exactly. It's charming. You know what it is. The illustrations actually tell us a lot of the story. You don't have to tell what you can see. The illustrations inform the story.
What gave you the ideas to start writing books?
Well, like I said, I used to do 3 stories a night.
Yeah.
And during the pandemic, a lot of us were sitting around not knowing what to do. And I just started. And it was just joyful writing stories. And it was joyful finding things to write about because there's so many things to help children with. The book before, one of the books before that is this one. Poppy Says, It's Okay, You're Okay.
Yeah.
It's about that we all don't have to be the same. We can accept differences in people. What I think Poppy says, we accept differences as gifts. So there are macaws that appear, and they have an iconic sense of themselves, and they're extraordinarily smart. They're like intelligence of a 3-year-old, but they repeat themselves. And so that's the way the book starts. They're repeating themselves, and they realize that they're different, but the community wants them to feel welcome, and they welcome their differences. And when you think of school kids, if somebody is a little different, they're generally scorned, but really what they should do is be embraced and incorporated as a gift. My mother used to say that she thought friends were like a diet. You have to have a lot of different friends to have a balanced diet.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And Shazam agrees.
Maybe the elevator is there or something. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. What the theme of the books is kind of life lessons, or
Yes, exactly. It's
what?
social.
Yeah, well, what made you lean into that?
Because I think that a lot of our world doesn't embrace that as much as it should. I think our world would be a better place if we learn to accept and we learn to have courage and we learn to give thanks or appreciations.
Hmm.
And I think that a lot of what children learn eventually is those social issues. So I'm offering that to younger children, and I incorporate them in fun stories. There's always a toucan joke. There's always laughter. There's always a fun, warm community.
It's interesting because I often have conversations on the podcast about where children are today in comparison, and it must have been interesting. Did you say it was your grandfather who was a plumber in the Depression?
Yes.
And could you, which is probably in American history, certainly economically, New York but just the whole of America was probably one of the most difficult times it had.
Yes.
Because of the impact, nobody escaped it.
Yes.
Especially as many people were fleeing Europe for various reasons.
Oh, yes.
And I often ask, how would you explain some of the issues that are going on with the way people are so wrapped up in their feelings today? And I'm not trying to diminish them in any way, shape or form. I'm not trying to remove any value to the way that somebody's mental health is today. But how would you explain that to your great-grandfather?
Well, I think that social media has been horrible for us. I mean, everybody can say anything, whether it's true or not. There's all these conspiracy theories. There's all this hate. I mean, what the world doesn't need hate. I mean, there's so much. First of all, there's so much tribalism, and tribalism breeds hate. So I feel like this is an especially difficult period that our president, for example, breeds. Anyway,
But what I
think
mean is because how would you explain to your grandfather, who would look at today the way that America, and I don't mean the politics, I mean the wealth, the commercialized, the assets, the material things, while he was watching people starving.
Yeah, I think there has been a huge disparity in wealth. I think that there's the billionaires, the oligarchs, there's the poor, but really what we need is middle class to be healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that is a real problem. There's the rich and the poor. That's not what's healthy for us. We need to take care of ourselves, and the middle class is a very important stabilizing group that is crucial for our health.
Well, I mean, I think it's probably fair to say that the boom, and I could be wrong, but I would say the boom coming out of the 40s into the 50s, the 60s, and 70s America was driven by the middle classes.
Yes, and it was a good, safe time.
Oh, brilliant! Because like I said, you could imagine, and like I said, I'm trying to, because I don't want to be clumsy with my words, but when we're talking about social media and people get upset about a post they see from another country with a person they've never met, for something that's never going to happen to them, and how would you explain to your great grandfather? Yeah, we're being controlled because people's feelings are hurt. And I can't imagine him understanding in any concept why anybody would care about your feelings.
Well, social media has taken over what people learn. The way they learn is via social media, whether it's true or false. It's nuts. I just shy away from that because, you cannot believe everything you read. And there's I mean, I love social media. They have what they had for dinner last night. Who cares? What do I care what their meal? And it's so stupid. They take a picture of them on vacation, which is like great for the thieves that want to break into their house. I mean, it makes no sense to me how they spew nonsense. And who has the time to read all this nonsense? I don't want to have the time to read it. So I agree that the people that really did the work, that went to work and tried to get a better life for themselves and their children, would be amazed at how much nonsense that, and everybody's on their phone. Wherever you are, you see everybody on their phone. And what are they doing? I mean, they can't be away from their texts for a moment. Like, really?
Oh yeah, it's absolutely tragic when you get down that road. Did you think are there any lessons, when you were writing the book, were there any moments, books, you say there's six?
Seven. And we got six awards, but we have 7 books.
Okay, thank you. And when you're writing these books, were there any, like, when you're putting down these lessons where it takes you back to a time and you're like, oh yeah, I need to explain this properly because when I learned this, it was valuable moving forward?
Absolutely. There was a time I did a painting in like 3rd grade, and I did a pink tree or a red horse or something like that, and everybody was making fun of me, and it felt horrible. The teacher was also making fun of me. And all the paintings were in the back of the room drying, and the teacher moved on to a lesson. And the principal came in the back quietly and listened to the lesson. And when there was a pause, the principal said, "Who did that painting?" and pointed at mine. And I was like, oh God, do I really have to raise my hand? I was like embarrassed, like I was, totally made fun of it. It felt horrible. But I like raised my hand, and he said, "I would love for you to give or lend it to me to put in my office. I think it's remarkable." And then the teacher went, "Oh yeah, isn't it great? I mean, what nonsense!" And all the kids were like, "Oh yeah, it's good." I mean, they did a whole about face. What I learned from that episode was interesting, that you can't play to an audience because you don't necessarily trust the audience, and the audience could change like fish in the sea. You have to do for yourself what you think is okay, and it's okay to do something out of the norm.
And it's horrible, isn't it, when you're a child and you kind of you feel that rejection from a teacher who kind
horrible.
Yeah, but then I think sometimes it's more horrible when someone else comes along and the teacher does that about turn, because there's a weird sense that even though they're being horrible to them, you still trust them, but when they do that and then they turn in front of, because somebody's come along and they're not prepared to say what they said because this person likes it, you lose. I think it's like a double whammy, because you lose the trust then as well. It's weird being, it's okay to insult me if I trust you.
But I think that we have to accept things like with a grain of salt, that not everyone should weigh in on our creativity, because there are different tastes and different styles, and we have to accept that not everyone is going to feel the same way. What we do know is that our own sense of what is good or not good, or that's important. You can't always play to the audience because the audience is fickle. So that, I think that's what I learned. I think I learned that's kind of being brave.
Yeah,
you have to be able to withstand criticism. And failure is a wonderful thing for a kid to see and overcome. And we all have failures.
Yeah, it's true. I think, and that maybe that was something that I was trying to get over about with your granddad's time, where it was just tough. Life was just hard. You were getting rejected on every corner street, trying to get a job. You know, there was just life for a period of time was an absolute struggle for everybody. And today, kids, they don't, you know, people, myself included, we can sometimes forget we have it so easy that we become afraid of things.
Yes.
That once upon a time a generation would have ran across hot coals for that opportunity, and we might back off from it because we're afraid of, well, what if it doesn't work? What does somebody else think?
Well, I think that's why we depend on community. Community kind of buffers us. If we have a close community that we give and they give, that we can depend on when times get bad.
Yes, it's true. Do you now that you've written 7 books, is there like more to come?
Well, here's the thing. I have an 8th book that I love, and it's about tribalism. It's about how one has to accept others, even if they threaten you. And I love the book, but the problem is my illustrator is moving to Copenhagen for a year.
Oh.
So I'm losing him. I can ask him if he could possibly do it when he was in Copenhagen, but I don't think so. I think that he wants the New York. Well, I mean, we interfaced on the illustration, so I think will make it difficult. I may have to wait a year. And if I have to wait a year, I have to wait a year. Or maybe I find another illustrator. I just learned yesterday, so I didn't. But I think that book about figuring out how to accept and not have hate in our hearts, how to embrace others and accept others, is an important book.
Do you have anything then on boundaries, or how people should have good personal boundaries?
No, but I think that's a good storyline.
Because I think it's difficult sometimes, and tribalism is a good example where we can try and be kind of we try and be nice and accept everybody in our group to the point that we might even tolerate behaviour we would rather not see. And it can be difficult because you don't. Well, actually, that goes against my values.
I think boundaries are crucial. I mean, I think that boundaries are important for relationships. You have to have a line that people can't cross. I think that's a very important thing that people to learn.
It is.
My daughter came to New York with her 7-month-old, and I had to establish boundaries for her. And she's 42.
Yeah, we all do.
They don't. Exactly. They don't end. Boundaries don't end.
But I think though that some people. I don't know if I was about to say some people are comfortable in enforcing their boundaries, and I don't know that any of us ever really get comfortable with it. We understand the necessity to it.
Yes, and I think there are different ways to say things. One could soften it. One doesn't have to be harsh.
That's
to
probably
establish
a good
a boundary. Yeah, I mean the delivery is a crucial thing, and so but I think one has to establish boundaries with every relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about dogs earlier. Dogs have boundaries. They know what they can't do that you're not going to tolerate. So I think that's an important way to get along.
And that's a really good example, isn't it? Because people will actually tell you, your dog needs to be, boundaries, and everybody understands the importance of it. Put it into a human perspective, and people will let things slide they'd never tolerate in other circumstances.
Well, when people, circumvent the boundaries, I think one tends to not want to be very close to them. If they don't respect the boundaries that you softly established, then this is not the person that you want to be very close to.
No, definitely not. And it does, and it brings a strain, doesn't it, to friendships, relationships, because things start brewing inside your mind that aren't healthy for you.
Exactly. And you don't want to live with negativity. Nobody wants to wake up and be angry like that. That burns off the energy. We don't want that. That's not what we want to choose in our life.
No. Just changing direction slightly. You mentioned that, and this is really for people who might be listening, because I get the impression from talking to you that, no, I was about to say you find it easy, but that's probably the wrong way of putting it. But when you want to go and try something new, you find an enthusiasm to go and do it.
Yeah, I think so. I think I try.
Yeah.
I try.
And I what I mean is, because sometimes when people want to do things and they don't, and then they can listen to somebody like yourself, I've done this, I've done that, and I've got 7 books, 8 on the way. I learned art, and I started my own business, and they can take that as you're never afraid of anything. You've always got this energy, you've always got this inspiration, and it's, whenever I talk to people in this boat, they're like, no, I'm often afraid. It's just, if you want, if you don't take a chance, if you don't take a step forward, nothing ever moves forward, and your chances never come off. And it's having that kind of, where does that tenacity come from?
I think that, some people will say, oh, that you're lucky. Oh, you were lucky. I don't think so. I don't think luck has anything to do with it. When I started my company, I started out teeny. I just started with one client, and then second client, and third. I lived in a loft. I started out of my loft.
Yeah.
I had no money. I didn't need money. And the company grew and grew, and what I didn't know, I had to learn. So I didn't assume I knew what to do. It was a process of experimentation, and what didn't work, you did something else to make it work. So that's not luck. That's defining the issues. I think that's an important aspect of this, defining what my problem is or what's holding me back, defining why I can't do left or right. And then when you have it defined and you understand it, then you can go to the next step. But if somebody just has no courage, they have to start. All you have to do is start, because when you start, you're in a different situation. You've taken a different step. The world looks different on the third step as opposed to the first step.
It is, isn't it? But it's that interesting thing, isn't it? Is people like yourself are always able to just get up in the morning, and I don't mean with inspiration and enthusiasm, but if I want this, I have to make a start.
You do, right?
Yeah. So I'm always curious as to the person that knows, well, I just have to make a start, and the start doesn't matter because it's not about the first step, it's about the third step and then the sixth step and so on and so on and so on. And the person that never starts because they're afraid of something. And I've never quite figured out what they're afraid of versus what it is that you're able to achieve when you have no idea what you're trying to achieve. Just, I need to make a start, so I'm going to start taking some steps in that direction.
I think we're talking about creativity or not to not have creativity or to have creativity. When you have creativity, you can try things. And, whether it's with
Yeah.
paper mache or pencil and paper, or you're confident that you can create. And if somebody doesn't have the confidence, then I think small steps is appropriate. Look, I'm not a skier. The last time I was on a mountain, I swore to myself if I ever got down, I would never get up. I didn't have that kind of, but I think that everyone has to commit to beginning something.
Yeah.
If they're curious about what it would feel like, how it would go to try something, they have to try. Maybe it's a teeny step, or maybe it's with a friend or a relative or some support.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's that thing in that you either have a creativity and to some degree, or you don't. And when you don't, it can be very difficult to know how to start, whereas the creative person doesn't know how to sit still.
Yes, but I think the not creative person, if one is honest with oneself and they accept that that's not their thing, maybe something else is their thing. I mean, people could, maybe they love soccer, maybe it's not drawing. But I think one finds passion in their lives. And when you find a passion, then the world breaks open. I mean, my passion was horticulture. And I remember getting a phone call from a girlfriend saying, we got a great party to go to. I said, I can't go. She said, what? Excuse me, why not? I said, I'm reading a book that I cannot put down. What book is it? It was Plants A to Z. And I said, I mean, in hindsight, it's so funny, but that was my passion. My passion was learning about plants. And that's what I adore. So I think people have to find their passion. And maybe it's helping others. Maybe it's walking long distances or running, or I don't know what it is. But everybody has to find what they like, what they love.
Yeah, it's true. So I just want to briefly, quickly, for somebody listening who is tempted, that they have this burning desire, or they something eating away at them because they want to write a book, and they don't know where to start or how to start writing a book. And the reason I'm going to ask it this way is because your books are packed with life lessons about how you get over obstacles and how you move forward and kind of find that self-esteem within yourself. And I'm a big proponent that self-esteem is actually the solution to most of people's problems.
Yes.
So how it almost in the style of your own books, how would you explain to somebody this is how you go about starting your first book?
Well, different people have different methods. I mean, a lot of people write outlines. I'm not an outline person. What I do is I have a thought of something, and I could sit down with a yellow line pad and pencil and write the whole thing out. Of course, it's not perfect. I mean, it needs to be worked on. It needs to be solidified. It needs to be edited a lot. But even that editing process is interesting. So once you get the main story out there, then you can wrestle with it and wrestle it to be a finer story than it started out. But it's once again, as you said, beginning.
It is, yeah. And just lastly, I have two more questions. Where can people find you?
Amazon.com.
Amazon.com.
And my website is MadelynSimon.com.
MadelynSimon.com. Okay. And my last question, which is a random question, I want you to imagine you have a time machine. The time machine has to be some form of transport, like a car. So what car would you have? Where would you go? And you can go anywhere, regardless if the car was around at that time. And what would you be listening to on the radio?
That's a good question. I think I would drive to a forest And I think I would like to, at this moment, be listening to Leonard Cohen.
Oh yeah, yeah. I, I like that.
I think that I would love to hear birds in the forest. I'd love to see animals. I'd love to see mountains. I think I'd like to see different than New York City.
Yeah.
I,
And any
Go ahead.
particular time period?
I'm not, well, I think at the summer is a wonderful time to go without ice and snow.
And what car would you be taking?
Oh, I want a Maserati.
Oh, lovely. Lovely. Leonard Cohen in a Maserati. Now that's just,
Exactly. With the music blasting.
yeah, that's a perfect pairing. Madeline, that has made my day when you said Maserati.
It's been a real pleasure to speak with you. This has been so much fun.
It has been for me as well. Thank you so much. And all my best to Shazam.
Thank you so much. And all my best to you. Your dog's name is Molly.
Molly, that's correct. Yeah.
Molly. Yes, great.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Madeline.
Thank you. Bye now.
And there you have it. Please do check out Madeline's website. The description and link will be, the links will be in the description. But also, it's interesting, isn't it, about where we are in the world today. And there's lots of people, Madeline included, who are going to great efforts to write life lessons that can help you move forward, not take things too seriously, not be too afraid of everything, and ultimately to build your self-esteem. And if you are someone struggling to just find that enthusiasm, watch the podcast again, because Madeline was oozing enthusiasm and is a perfect life lesson about if you want something, you just have to try and get it and not be too worried about the failing, because it's a learning process, and that's all you're doing. You're just learning, and as Madeline said, it's practice makes perfect. And as practice makes perfect, I would like to thank everybody that watches, subscribes, listens, shares, comments, and wherever you're from, whatever you believe, please do take care and be blessed. Thank you.